This is The Villains of Man. I'm JVD, bringing you another comic book review over Justice League Darkseid War. The story takes place between issues 40 and 50 and has a number of one-shots that tie into the story. First is Divergence number 1 from Free Comic Book Day 2016. Check that out for the origin of Grail. There are 5 one-shots focusing on the various characters who receive godlike powers. Those take place between issues 46 and 47. Then finally, Darkseid War Special number 1, which tells the story of Power Ring and Cyborg as their bodies are taken over. These take place between issues 48 and 49. Before I continue on, here's a summary of the plot. During the night of Wonder Woman's birth, an Amazon named Marina, who is secretly pregnant, was giving birth to her daughter Grail, who she sired with Lord Darkseid from Apokolips. Of the 3 Amazon who knew of it and witnessed the birth, one was an oracle. She foreseen the child bringing forth a war between the anti-god and the dark god that would destroy the world. Marina killed them before they could get to the child, and then the two escaped Themyscira. For centuries they searched for a way to destroy Darkseid. Through her trips through the multiverse, Grail come across the Anti-Monitor and seen him as an ally against her father. Unknown to her, he sees this as a way to escape the anti-life equation within him. As a battle takes place on Earth, the Anti-Monitor kills Darkseid and frees himself of the anti-life equation. Becoming Mobius, the Justice League seek help from the Crime Syndicate, only to find that Superwoman is pregnant. During the final battle, she gives birth to a reborn Darkseid as Mobius dies. Grail then uses the child to steal powers from the heroes before escaping, and has plans to use the infant in her own schemes. When the story was advertised, I was pretty stoked for it, but after reading it, I felt like it was just short of being great. First thing, the book had all these great twists and turns, only to see Darkseid be reborn when the whole plot was centered around his death. Second, I understand why it's called Darkseid War, but I felt a different title was needed. It was just about the Anti-Monitor as it was Darkseid, and if anything, he had a bigger role in the story. But in the end, the book doesn't pull any punches. Besides tons of civilians' death, there are main characters that die as well. Just as Anti-Monitor is reborn into Mobius, he dies. Darkseid dies just to be reborn. All Crime Syndicate perish. Marina Black sacrifices herself to save the world. Steve Trevor dies as host of the anti-life equation. And the strongest of all DC heroes, Superman, slowly begins to die from his power boost from the solar pits of Apokolips. In the end of the story, you're left with multiple plot points for characters in the future, which will surely be explained by the time DC Rebirth starts. The main focus for the book is around 2 characters. The first is Grail, who is new to the DC universe. From the very beginning, she's shown to be a powerhouse. She's shown to be faster and stronger than Wonder Woman, who I guess they're trying to play her off as an equal since they're both of Amazonian bloodline. During the story, she winds up with some impressive feats. The lasso of truth doesn't work on her. She has her own type of Omega beams from Darkseid's bloodline. These show to break Wonder Woman's bulletproof bracelets, bracers of victory, whatever you want to call them. Hal Jordan blasts her with energy from his power ring, and she literally grabs it and crushes it, crushing the will of Hal Jordan and injuring him. Later on, she has this axe which she's using throughout the story, but 7 Green Lanterns form a cage around her, and with one swing of this axe, she breaks it, sending the lanterns scattering. What really makes the character interesting is the knowledge of the multiverse she's gained through plotting her father's death. To kind of show some of this off, when she first shows up in the story outside of the prologue, she makes her way to the scene through the mouth of the Flash. And it got me thinking, you know, it said that Barry is the source of the Speed Force, that, you know, he is the Speed Force, so maybe she has some knowledge of how to travel through the Speed Force and uses Barry as a gateway to exit it, knowing that if she finds him, she'll find the Justice League, and has a way to start this war. Another neat reason for traveling the multiverse and learning the secrets of the multiverse, which she's kind of been explained to do throughout the book. When she arrives through the Flash, she uses Hal Jordan's power ring to summon the Anti-Monitor to Earth and even unleash these shadow soldiers under his control. It's really neat, and it makes you wondering, you know, does she know more about the Green Lantern's rings than they do? I mean, clearly she's been around for millennia and more now, so it would make a lot of sense. And traveling the multiverse, learning for ways to defeat Darkseid, I mean, maybe she's come in contact with Lanterns before and has defeated them and taken their rings. The other main character is obviously the Anti-Monitor, despite the story arc being named after Darkseid. You get a nice little history of him. You find out that he was once a being named Mobius, and the Mobius chair has taken its name after him. It used to be his. He came in contact with the anti-life equation, and that's what changed him, made him this force of nature, force of the universe that, you know, knew nothing but destruction. In the beginning of the book, he's speaking to Metron on the Crime Syndicate's Earth, which that's what caused them to come to the Prime Earth during Forever Evil. And they have a really good conversation. They're both speaking of their roles in the universe. The Anti-Monitor as Destroyer, Metron as the Witness, and, you know, Mobius, the Anti-Monitor, even tells him, you know, one time I was in your spot. So that got me wondering, you know, what or who had the anti-life equation before Mobius, before the Anti-Monitor. During Forever Evil, when you're getting the one-shots, the .1s, .2s, throughout all the 52 series, there's one of Darkseid that showed where he had got the Omega effect. So I thought that would be a really neat idea to maybe explore this a little bit more. But now with the death of the character, you may not get that. Or even with Grail, if they wanted to do something with her, since she has the power at the end of the book, you could explore that with her. Once the Anti-Monitor frees himself of the anti-life equation and he becomes Mobius, you see a complete change in his character. He goes from just destroying because it's in his nature, because that's what the anti-life equation makes him do, to almost this sadistic killer, almost like the Joker in a sense. Like he takes great pleasure into being up front and close and personal when killing someone, and you can tell when he's fighting off the Justice League and whatnot, and even when he's fighting Luthor, when he gets the Omega effect, that he really enjoys it. Like, he lives for that type of battle. Throughout the book, 6 characters become so-called gods by various means and whatnot. The Flash becomes a god of death during the fight between the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid. Darkseid summons the Black Racer. The Anti-Monitor fuses him with the Flash and uses that to kill Darkseid. Hal Jordan fuses his ring with a mother box. Shazam winds up getting the powers, I'm assuming, of all the Pantheon gods of his Pantheon. Lex Luthor becomes the god of Apocalypse. When Darkseid dies, the Omega effect leaves him and it needs a host. And while he is trapped on Apocalypse, he becomes the host and comes back to Earth to fight Darkseid. That winds up being a really neat little twist later on. But the 2 main ones go to Batman and Superman, obviously, since they're the 2 biggest characters for DC. And it's very important to the story what they gain, and also as to their characters later on. First off is Batman. He becomes the god of knowledge. Go figure. Master detective. Guy with all the knowledge. Wonder Woman pulls Metron from the Mobius chair with the lasso, and Batman automatically jumps up on it. And if you think ever thought Batman was a dick, well, he becomes more of a dick after this. He's calm and, constantly, giving all this knowledge and blah, blah, blah. But the first thing he does is you really see where Batman's just as crazy as his villains, just as obsessive. The first thing he asks is, did Joe kill my parents? And, okay, yeah, he sees that's true. And then he asks the Joker's identity. And he's very shocked to the answer it gives him. And later on at the end of the book, you find out that there's 3 Jokers, not 1. A twist I don't think anybody's seen coming. And definitely one that I'm sure that are some fans that aren't excited about. I'm on the fence with it. I'll deal with it once it gets here. The obsession even grows more with the Joker once he finds this. Hal Jordan finds him at Acme Chemical, which is like the birthplace of the Joker. But as he's on the chair, Hal warns him that it's going to hurt him, that it could kill him. And towards the finale of the book, when it starts to, during the finale of the book, when the chair is killing Batman, Hal Jordan removes his ring, placing it on Batman's, and using the willpower to force Batman from the Mobius chair. Superman becomes a god of strength. Him and Lex Luthor, they get banished to Apocalypse. And Apocalypse has no sun, there's no solar energy. So Superman's slowly becoming weakened, and at first he doesn't understand it until Lex Luthor points it out to him. Well, Darkseid sets all the slaves against them, as a prize, and whoever gets it gets freedom. And realizing that he needs Superman, Lex just shoves him in one of the solar pits of Apocalypse, and it powers him up and makes him, I assume, stronger than what he was. It gives him this negative look, like he's all in shades of black and white, like Mr. Negative from the Spider-Man comics. But it also makes him very, very aggressive, and eventually you find out it makes him also immune to kryptonite. But Batman also later on tells him that it's destroying his cells, and it's slowly killing him. But to the point of being aggressive, once he returns back to Earth, he finds Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor in a romantic, almost intimate scene with each other, where they're kind of talking about, how much they've always cared for each other, which causes Superman to attack Wonder Woman in a fit of jealousy. The degeneration of his cells also plays effect into his death into issue 52 of his series as he dies. But there's a few other notes about the book. The biggest one, which is Wonder Woman has a twin brother named Jason. The first thing I thought about when I read this was that this is Jason from Jason and the Argonauts, because it makes a lot of sense with all the Greek mythology. If I was a betting man, I would say that that's probably going to come up to be true. You find out that he is the first man, to ever touch the Themyscira soil, not Steve Trevor, which kind of throws a hole into the plans to destroy Darkseid. And the biggest thing, which a lot of people will complain about, is this, once again, is an origin change to Wonder Woman. Another interesting note on the book is when Hal removes Batman from the Mobius chair, Owlman gets on it from the Crime Syndicate, and then Grid, who is the equivalent to Cyborg in a sense, downloads himself to it. I thought this was really interesting. Amongst Batman fans, Owlman is very, very popular because he's basically a very ruthless Batman. I would say worse than Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman. But this was something I was kind of hoping that, wow, maybe this will be forgotten about for a while, and in a couple years he'll show up and it'll be a big surprise. As the book ends, you see him speaking to Metron, and it gives off the impression that Metron pushed him to get the chair because Metron doesn't want no part of it anymore. But off panel, there's someone there that they're very shocked to see, and Metron is very aware of who it is, and now Owlman with the chair knows who it is. in the next page you see that where they were is all smoldering and covered in blood, and the Mobius chair sits by itself. Another interesting note was Darkseid's death fractures reality. I'm assuming it's not his death that does this, but it's the Omega effect leaving him, and it made me curious to know that if the Anti-Monitor would have died with the anti-life equation in him, would it give the same effect? And are other DCU entities like these guys, like maybe someone like Parallax, who is a power source, so like say if he was the host, you know, if Sinestro was his host and Sinestro was to die and Parallax emerged from him, would it cause the same thing? Would it, you know, fracture reality, you know, disrupt time, something like that? It's really interesting that a character like Darkseid, before, you know, the 52, you would have never thought of his death causing such a thing. And it's a very interesting twist to his character. As for the good and the bad, what I thought of the book, it kind of goes hands in hand with each other. Most of the things I've talked about note-wise I thought was really interesting and good for the book, and even good for the characters. Like Grail, I thought it was really interesting to see Grail. Not only was she like Wonder Woman and Darkseid, but they give you this mystique about her of things that she could possibly know. But what makes it bad is in the end of the book she has the anti-life equation, and she has this infant Darkseid, so you probably will not see her for a while. Another thing that I thought was both good and bad was powering Jessica, the Green Lantern, and Valthoom. You got to see what was inside the ring when the entity took her over, and she was trapped inside, and then Cyborg downloaded himself into the ring. And then, but as quickly as he took over, he was gone, because Flash, who is the god of death, you know, someone had to die. And when you think it's Jessica that died, no, it was Valthoom that died, and his ring crumbles from Jessica's finger and she's still alive. And being a Green Lantern fan, it made me wonder, you know, if they're a parallel world and he's the opposite of Ion, are the other emotional spectrums there? Would it work the same way? Would you have, you know, all these different entities like him in their world? And that would have been something I'd really like to see as well. Going on things that I wanted to see, a lot of it's around Marina Black and Grell. One thing I think was key that they really missed was when she met Darkseid, when they had this communion, and you know, Grell was seated. To my knowledge, I don't think I've read anything where that's happened, so if someone has and they hear this, please point me in that direction. I'd really like to read that. But it'd been a great way to show the reader, you know, how she knows to travel the multiverse, and how she, you know, just a way to show her what she knows and what she's taught Grell, because Grell's been traveling the multiverse for centuries now, looking for a way to defeat her father. With Marina Black, one thing they showed when she was with Mr. Miracle, when she was in her mission temple, and you see all these trophies, she speaks of how she defeated the Red Panzer, Minister Blizzard. You know, who are these guys? How, you know, who or what else is in there? You know, is it just trophies from this prime Earth, or is there trophies from alternate Earth? You know, alien planets, since she traveled the multiverse, and that was a missed opportunity to show, you know, her traveling the multiverse, what her and Grell have learned. With Grell, I'd mentioned how she shattered the Green Lantern's cage. When she does this, she says the axe was forged by Hades, and I would really like to see when this hammer was forged, the conversation between her and Hades. I would assume that maybe Hades, being a god, may know of Apocalypse and Darkseid. Maybe they have some, you know, beef with one another. But it really reminded me of Thor's axe, Jarnborn from the Uncanny Avengers series, that played a really significant role in that book. And the axe seems to be just as powerful. I mean, breaking the cage of 7 Green Lanterns is not an easy feat. So, I mean, it really shows you that she's a real badass with it. And being a huge RPG, Dungeons & Dragons player, you know, all great weapons need a name, and the weapon had no name. So, you know, that kind of irked me just a little. But, you know, just those things right there mentioned with Marina Black and Grail would easily make a good one-shot or even a mini-series to give those two characters that just debuted in this story, you know, some life. Like, Grail, you can read online, like, she's been off-panel in a book here or there. I think she was captured in Argus, but you never really seen her. They said she was a planetary threat, so, you know, that really gives just a little bit of insight on the character. But, just with those things, I think Jeff Johns, being the great writer he is, could have really done something with it. That wraps up my review, my thoughts for Justice League Darkseid War. We've got a video over a review of the very first arc of this series, so check that out. This is The Villain's Man. I'm JVD. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube. Keep reading, guys.